Everybody. Welcome to another episode of Coffee with the Critters, where we live stream from the Animal Behavior Center's Facebook page at 9 a.m. every Sunday morning, unless I'm traveling. And usually when I travel, I'm taking you guys with me. So we've been live streaming Coffee with the Critters every Sunday morning for the past 4.5 years. So I thank all of our loyal followers and everybody that is new. So we live stream around the world, and I know we have Gloria and Yang over in Taiwan sharing a lot of this. So we thank all our international followers as well. Good morning, Helen. So as everybody comes in, this is a special episode of every episode of Coffee with the Critters is special, but this is a super special one because so many of you have been following Rocky's story, knew that he was asked to be in a commercial. And I'm glad that I can finally say it's for Stanley Steemer. And we will be live streaming today with a couple of different people. I'm going to bring them on here in a minute and introduce them. Good morning, Melinda, Carrie, Stacy, Teresa, Lynn, Deb. Hey, everybody. So for those that may not know who we are or might be watching this live stream for the first time, my name is Laura Joseph, owner of the Animal Behavior Center. We're an international educational center where we teach people around the world through our live streaming services how to empower animals and the people that care for them. And we do that through our work with positive reinforcement and applied behavior analysis. And you can find out more about the work that we do on our website, which is theanimalbehaviorcenter.com. You can always message me directly. I answer all of my emails personally. Good morning, everybody. And you can reach me at laura@theanimalbehaviorcenter.com. So before we get started, I wanted to mention a couple of things. So on our Facebook page, you'll see we have, in the events section, we'll have listed all upcoming Coffee with the Critters. You can also join our email newsletter list, which a lot of people have been subscribing within the past couple days. And you can find that right here on the Animal Behavior Center's Facebook page and join us. So we have announced the starting of our nonprofit for animals, the Sam I Can Foundation. You can find our website at samicanfoundation.org, and you can follow the Facebook page. So we started this nonprofit in honor of one of the animals here that passed away recently, Sam. And this nonprofit is for all animals. It's not just for birds, where myself and the other board members will review different cases, and we start raising money in the Sam I Can Foundation to get animals and their people, if needed, transported from point A to point B to get the help and services they need to for the better well-being of the animals in their care. So with that being said, I am going to go ahead and bring on our guests. Here they come. There we go. There's Glenn Przborski with Przborski Productions. Hi, Glenn. Thanks for being here.
Hey, same to you, Laura. Good morning on a Sunday morning here.
And Jim McCabe, Creative Director of Stanley Steemer. Jim, thanks for coming on here with us.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. There's quite a bit of people on here already. And as they start having questions, I can put it up on the screen and we can address them as they come in. So yeah, Sunday morning, Coffee with the Critters. This is a long awaited episode. I can't tell you how, I came there to help you guys. Well, I didn't help you guys do anything. I just brought Rocky. I was sure.
Well, you were a big part of it.
Very big.
And that was back in January, mid-January. So a lot of people that watch Coffee with the Critters were following that from the get-go in January. And then I wasn't allowed to say what the commercials were, so they were patiently waiting. And now are all 4 of the commercials airing?
Yep. Well, with the exception of one, the party spot we're saving that one for October.
Okay.
All the other ones have been running all across the country.
Okay. Good. Good. Okay. Well, first, I guess before we get started, do you guys care if I start telling a little bit about Rocky's history and why this was so important for Rocky? And then we can go into discussing, if you want, Jim, how you contacted me, and then Glenn, how we talked numerous times on the phone, and we can just go from there.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, good. So Rocky is 20 years old. He's a Moluccan cockatoo. He's almost 21. I adopted him at 8 years old, and he was in somebody's house, and the person moved and left Rocky behind in the cage, and we don't know for how long. But he was labeled as aggressive, and then was getting ready to be put down. He was getting ready to be it was suggested he be euthanized for his aggressive behaviors. So I know I had wanted a Moluccan cockatoo for quite a while, and I thought, there's so many that need homes. I was waiting to adopt one. And then I met Rocky, and I was told, it was suggested he be euthanized. And I was sitting there watching him, and I thought, I could tell they were learned behaviors. And a lot of times undesired behaviors are unknowingly reinforced by the people that keep them. So what I did is I needed more education than what I had, because actually, Glenn, I don't know if you know this, but my undergraduate degree is in documentary filmmaking.
Oh, cool.
So when I was on set, I was like salivating, watching everybody work.
You could have done my job.
I don't think so. But so that's when I ended up going back to school and taking master's level classes in applied behavior analysis. That is the study of behavior that's heavily used within people with the autistic spectrum, because you can't force a lot of people to do certain things without consequences of behavior. So that's what I use, and I apply it to the animals in my care. I applied it to Rocky, and we really started changing these behaviors. And then I started blogging about my work with him, and that's when a lot of the people started following the work we do. And then 7 years ago, we opened the Animal Behavior Center here in Northwest Ohio, but it doesn't matter where we are because our services are live streamed across the world. And Rocky is actually the mascot of this center. When we know better, we do better. So then, Jim, do you want to take it from there and how the phone call came to be?
Sure. So yeah, as the creative director at Stanley Steemer, it's my job to come up with some spots. We wanted to recreate some spots that were made back in 2006, which involved a dog and a person and a little boy and his mom, and kind of famous spots. A lot of people know them, where the dog scooches across. Anyway, I was asked to recreate those. So in coming up with some concepts, we thought we don't want people screaming at animals. Stanley Steemer is very cognizant about the treatment of animals if we use them on set and that type of thing. So we had to think about it and worked with Glenn Przeworski Productions. Anyway, we came up with this idea of, rather than a person reacting or yelling at the dog for scooching across the carpet, or in this case, the carpet, the tile, and the hardwood, we decided, what if we had a bird? And you might see right up there is my bird, who talks all the time. So that was kind of the thought behind it, was like, well, what if we had a bird reacting? Because they speak and they're funny and they're very intelligent and they can react. So that's what we did. So we thought, well, let's put the bird in there and see what happens. And so when we were researching how are we going to find a bird to do it, it was hard enough we had to find a dog that was going to scooch its butt on command. So we also needed a bird that was going to react on command to make Glenn's job as the director even easier. So,
Possible.
no, right. But nothing's impossible when you work with them. They can do anything. So I thought about it, and we were actually thinking about an animatronic bird or a mechanical bird, if you will. It really wasn't perfect. We really wanted the actual reaction of the bird. So I reached out to my vet, who is Dr. Oglesby here in Columbus, Ohio, and she's just amazing. She's one of the best avian vets in the country, from what I understand. And they actually took a few days, thought about it, and they gave me a call back, and they said, call Laura. So I did, and that was kind of a fun conversation, interesting conversation, I think, especially for you, Laura. Why don't you tell us about that?
What, when you first called me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Jim, you called me, and I was sitting right here at my desk, and my phone rang, and I didn't recognize the number. So I answered it, and I believe you said, hi, my name's Jim McCabe from Stanley Steemer. And then the phone went dead. Do you remember that?
I did. Yeah, I think I did it like 3 times in a row.
And I was just like, hello, hello. And then I was like, okay, this is the telemarketer. So I put my phone down, and then your number came up again. And I was like, hello, this is Laura with the Animal Behavior Center. And you're like, hi, this is Jim McCabe with Stanley Steemer. And it went dead again. And then you called back again. You're like, don't hang up.
I was like, this is real. I swear I'm a real person.
So then you started talking about looking for a bird for a commercial. And I had asked you how you heard about us, and you said Dr. Oglesby. So when you were telling me what you were looking for, I was like, what are you looking for a bird to do? And Jim, not once was I thinking of any of my birds here. I was thinking of all the people I know across the United States that have birds I was going to reach out to Jeannie Gilligan in New Jersey, Luann on Long Island. And that's who I was thinking about putting you in touch with. And you started saying, well, we're looking for a bird that's very animated, very vocal. And the more you started describing what you were looking for, I think it was probably 15 minutes into the conversation, I started laughing. And I said, actually, what you're describing you're looking for in a bird is one of our resident cockatoos, Rocky.
Yep.
And I remember you asking me, well, can you get him to open his mouth? And I was like, oh, that's not going to be a problem. The problem is going to be for him to keep it shut.
Yeah,
So
I remember that.
Yeah. And then Glenn, I think I talked to you. Jim, you told me you were going to put me in touch with Glenn.
Yep.
And that was 24 hours later. And I remember thinking, you're like, Rocky? I think Rocky's the bird we're looking for. And then within the next 24 hours till I talked to Glenn, I had already talked myself out of it. I was like, nope, this is not what we do here. I can get another bird. You know, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do this for Rocky. But then Glenn, I talked to you the next morning, and you were like, what are your hesitations?
Yeah.
And I remember saying safety, and you're like, we have that covered 110%. And I think I was worried about the sound he was going to make on set while you were trying to film the
And
movie.
it's rare because we decided that whatever sound he makes is fine because most of the scenes are in essence silent anyway, other than the fact that that the bird would be making a sound. We'd record him and then move that around at a different time than it actually happened. One thing that I thought was kind of funny prior to Jim finding you is that you made calls around the entire United States to find a parrot, okay? And people were saying, well, there's some great parrots in that show, Pirates of the Caribbean, because they're on the people's shoulders and all. So we found the actual people that did that movie, and believe me, none of the parrots are real in that movie. They're believable enough that I would believe that they were real, but they were hydraulically operated parrots. The guy sent us a video, which I shared with Jim, and they have little hydraulic lines that are a little miniature. They're like tubing for an aquarium, and they go behind the person, and if the parrot's sitting on their shoulder, there's a guy on the floor with this manipulator thing in his hand, and he could turn the head and open the mouth. And of course, they put the sound in later. And so they said, well, you can maybe have access to this, but it requires a crew of 3 people, and we have to ship all this stuff in. And furthermore, you have to get permission from Universal Studios because they technically own the parrots for the Pirates of the Caribbean series. And so we knew that would be impossible. And, so we sort of put that on the back burner. And, I actually had contacted also the where I live in Pittsburgh, the National Aviary is only 2.5 miles away for the whole United States National Aviary. And I called those people and talked to them, and they gave me names of 2 people around here that happen to own parrots. And one of them, I don't know if a parrot molt or something where it loses its feathers.
Parrots can't, as long as it's not a medical issue. A lot of parrots will pull their feathers out due to, it can be numerous behavior issues, stress, unenriched environments, numerous different things.
Oh, okay. Because this one guy sent me a picture that looked like a joke. I mean, it was like a bald parrot with, it literally looked like a comedic parrot. And we said, no, that's not what Jim wants in this thing. So anyway, then we were a little bit frustrated, and then Jim did that when he mentioned to you earlier the story where he talked to his vet, and we were able to find you, and then we both shared. You had some videos on YouTube with Rocky.
Yeah.
And I looked at them and I said, "Oh, this bird's perfect," and so we made a concentrated effort to get you talked into doing it.
Yeah, and I think it took a couple of days and a couple of conversations.
Yeah.
Also,
you should mention some of the unusual requests that you had that was different than anything we ever heard, which was you had told us that you wanted to stay in the house with the bird as opposed to being in a fancy hotel. And we thought, well, that's strange, because these hotels are really nice and all. But then we heard how loud Rocky screams or screeches. And then we thought there would be no one on that floor that would accept that noise at night.
Right. I remember you guys saying, we'll put you up in a hotel. We'll get you whatever. It wasn't necessarily whatever I needed. It was whatever Rocky needed. And I just said, you guys, and Glenn, you and I were talking about this yesterday about how the decibel of the scream of a cockatoo, the call of a cockatoo is louder than a jet engine.
Yeah.
You just got to hear that. When
I mentioned that I directed a TV special. It was on Arts and Entertainment with the Air Force Thunderbird. Okay, so we were around fighter jets. And honest to God, that bird of yours is louder than a jet when you're near it. And your ears actually shake that vibration that happens when you're overloading your eardrums. And we thought, I know exactly what she meant now.
Yep. So we shot this, well, you guys shot this in a house just outside of Columbus. And I remember saying, the best thing that could happen is if Rocky and I could stay in one of the rooms in the house. So that way we're out on set at night and I can take the time and introduce him, walk him around the set, because this is what I was doing at night. And you guys got it approved, and Rocky and I stayed in one of the bedrooms.
Yeah, well, we were fortunate with this gorgeous house, and Jim actually was primarily found the house with a vacation scout, but it just so happened the house was totally empty for an entire week. So we were able to rent that house for 1 week with no one in there. So one of the bedrooms became Rocky's dressing room and Rocky's room, and the other one became the dog's room. And of course, the dog didn't stay there. He stayed in the fancy hotel at night. But
that's the benefits of living with a dog versus a parrot.
Yeah. So
yeah, I walked upstairs, and this is one of the first things I saw was Rocky's room, and then Manny's room was right across Manny the dog, which is actually Toby in the commercial, was right across the hall, and then this sign was right outside Rocky's door, and I was like, oh, this will be fun. So, Jim, you're getting a lot of comments from people about your gray. And you said his name is Tegan?
Tegan. Yep. Her name is Tegan. She is 6 years old, and she's just, I love birds. So I've always wanted a gray. So that was another reason I was like, I got to do a spot with a bird in it. I'd never done that before. I've worked with dogs. I've worked with kids. I've worked with difficult adults, but I never worked with a bird. So it was such a really interesting experience, but I knew using my bird as much as she talks, and I actually got her to react to and say Toby and that kind of stuff. She just didn't have the personality, the big personality that Rocky had. So, and what we needed really was on screen, because we dubbed in the voice. We had to in order to control it and make sure it hit and was loud enough and all that kind of stuff. But Rocky just reacted and had the it's like he had done this his whole life. It was really amazing. So he was perfect.
Yeah, I'm sitting here looking through some of the photos to put up as you were talking, but Rocky, the reason I finally accepted to do this was Jim and Glenn, you were both anything I needed for Rocky. You guys you had it done. Safety was first and foremost, and maybe we can talk about all the steps that had gone into that. But I was just like, this is going to be such awesome enrichment for Rocky. And being on set, I think we were there for 3 days, provided so much enrichment for Rocky that I still could not beat that.
Well, you caught us off guard a tiny bit when you said a bird like Rocky and the dog, who is the natural predator to each other, should not be in the room at the same time when we're filming. And of course, a number of scenes where the dog and the bird are obviously together. And so what we had to do is quickly plan out, like for one of the most complicated shots is that on that wedding that you see there, we had 50 extras and of course the actors in the front, but we had to shoot that twice, one time without the dog, but with Rocky and the people reacting to an imaginary dog that was there on the floor. And then Rocky went away with you and the dog came in, and your point was probably very correct also, that there's no way the dog wouldn't look up at that bird with it making that kind of volume sound. And so it worked out perfectly because and luckily we knew that ahead of time from you, so we would plan out these locked off shots where part of the scene was replaced with Rocky and the other part was replaced with Manny. I still call him Manny. I guess I should call him by Toby because that's the part he plays. But he was a 10-year-old dog, and I guess you have people on your group here that are dog people too.
Yep, we get a lot of followers from professional dog trainers, horse trainers, zoo trainers. So yeah, there's a lot of dog people on this dog team.
Well, he was. It was a little bit hard to find that dog. That was. It was hardest to find the bird, but right up there was the complication to finding the dog. And
because, I was going to say, Glenn, do you want to talk about people? You contacted a bunch of people about the dog. You needed the dog scooting its rear along the floor, and a lot of
Jim. When Jim contacted us, I think right at the end of, wasn't it the end of 2018? Right in it was in December. Yeah, and he mentioned this dog that could do this, and then not only on the rug but on tile and on hardwood. Okay, well, dogs just don't do that on tile and hardwood, and there's a number of professional dog trainers all around the country. Dogs are probably the most common thing in TV films and commercials and things. And so anyway, our person here began calling different people, and I didn't speak to any of them, but my business partner, Jim DiVincentis, as well as Tracy, who is our location producer, she began calling all around the country. There's my business partner there, Jim DiVincentis. But anyway, they began calling people, and some trainers absolutely refused to do it. They just said flat out that that's a problem for a dog to have, not some kind of learned behavior. It's, you know, it indicates something wrong with the dog. And so, of course, those people were taken out of the mix. But then we found a woman named Meredith Viallo, Vallillo, up in Connecticut. And her company, which is called the Connecticut Canine Services, her company supplies police dogs to literally hundreds of police departments, dogs that are trained for drugs and sniffing out this and that. And so she has quite a business up there, but she also does quite a few New York City productions that originate in the New York area. So we happened to stumble upon her name a couple times, and then we spoke to her, and she said, "Yeah, I don't see any problem with that." And which we were surprised after hearing the negative stuff all along. And she had this dog, and I believe, Jim, wasn't that dog her daughter's dog? Wasn't?
Yep. Yeah. He was a yellow lab.
Yeah.
I think he was 10. He was a little
10 years older.
Yeah. But what was funny is she said that he loved it. That was the thing. I was like, how? Because I have 3 dogs, and I was like, I could never train a dog to do that, not in a million years. And she's like, it's just their personality. And he kept doing it every time you'd call the dog, even when we weren't rolling. He'd still come over and scooch across.
He would totally enjoy, just like Rocky did, that the people in the room liked what he did. I mean, they literally felt like they had done something and were congratulated, of course, because everybody's gone, "Oh, that's perfect, Manny," whatever. And he literally could scoot 20, wouldn't you say 20 feet, 25 feet?
Oh, yeah. But it was like every time you called him.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny.
So, so that's probably part of his act right now all the time. That's all he does, Oh, here's the Stanley Steemer dog.
And she was, I mean, because Manny and her room were right across the hall from Rocky and I.
Yeah.
So I put Rocky in his cage, and I would go over, and I was just like, okay, this is cool. I need to go talk to this woman, myself being an animal trainer and her being a dog trainer. So I went over and I said, "So how did you teach Manny to scoot his butt across the floor?" And she goes, "Well," and when she explained it to me, it's all shaping, reinforcing small approximations. She goes, "We've got the sit on cue, and then the sit, move an inch, move 2 inches, move 3 inches," until she got it on a verbal cue, and he just started doing it every time she asked him to.
Yeah, and so the other thing that's funny, and people might find this interesting in your chat here, is that we had to sign, and I know you did too, a statement to CBS Broadcasting that those dogs and the bird were not injured or in any way put in jeopardy during the filming, and they're all worried about reactions that they might get from people that people email or do a comment on anything today. So
any negative feedback.
Yeah. So that's, people may not think about that, but if you have an animal today on TV, if it's just a local TV thing, I think you could get away with pretty much anything without people questioning it. But as long as you didn't beat the dog or do something physical that you can see. But when you're dealing with a national campaign, you have to really protect yourself and make sure that things are on the up and up, and there's no chance that the animal could have been injured or anything.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. And as
forced to do
as a brand, you really have to watch that. So that's why we went through every channel. And I think it's kind of interesting that a lot of people may not realize is that before this even kicked off, we have a ton of meetings when we're looking for locations, and once we find the locations and we're dressing the locations, because that was a completely empty house. So we spend days doing that. But during that process, everyone's educated. And for me, it was interesting just being a bird owner for 6 years now, how like specific you have to be and how cautious you have to be with birds. So I was just imparting my information, my knowledge about keeping the doors, and because it was January in Columbus, Ohio. So they had covers over all the doors. And it was so funny how I think it must have scarred people because they were afraid to open up a door, period. Even when Rocky was up in his suite up there with his brand new cage and in a bedroom that was far, far away from the action. This is a huge house. Nobody would open the doors. They were super cautious. But it's interesting how if you don't know that, you would have no idea. But all these people were constantly, he can't have a draft and he can't have this, and make sure, because at first I didn't understand how are we going to shoot scenes of the bird and the dog reacting off of each other if they're not even in the same room. So it was kind of interesting, and going to speak more on that, but it was interesting. People were so focused on that, and I thought, maybe that's a product that we were filming in Ohio, and we had Ohio crews and people from Pittsburgh, so it was more Midwestern. I don't know, but everybody was just so into it. So it was interesting.
Yeah, I was really impressed because my number one concern was just Rocky's safety, safety of the animals on set. So by me agreeing to do this, I wasn't sure what we were getting into, and I spoke with both you, Jim, and Glenn on the phone numerous times. Safety is a priority, and this is just a picture I took of walking around at night. You guys were so efficient and so safety driven that when it was time for Rocky and I to come on set, I heard it being announced through everybody's walkie-talkies, and Rocky's coming on set. You had people at every single door when Rocky was on set. I felt very special, but I was just his chauffeur.
Well, and also realize that we're both I've had dogs all my life, but never a bird. But matter of fact, it didn't occur to me till Jim told me when we were planning the shots and thing about the draft situation that you can't have a bird in a draft from a cold window or something. And so we made sure that any angle we figured there was nowhere near a doorway that could possibly be putting air out and stuff.
Yeah. There was a lot of precautions, even like aerosols in the household. We were talking about candles on set. What was really cool with Rocky is here is a fully flighted Moluccan cockatoo. So, and I was upstairs listening when you guys were talking and telling everybody on set and the crew what to do. Rocky's getting ready to come down. He's fully flighted. So if he gets scared, he's going to take off. So that caused me, because I would walk on set with him on my hand like this. And it was so cool because you guys let me have full control of everything as far as Rocky's safety when he was on set. So some of the things like your crew doesn't think about because they don't have fully flighted animals on set every day. But I remember some of the light filters that were being pushed by would create all these huge shadows. And that's when I would feel Rocky's feet just really clamp on my hand. And I remember at least one time I just screamed, "Everybody stop!" And Rocky, and everybody did. Everybody just stopped. Rocky never once flew. So you guys were very cordial in making sure he was comfortable and not stressed.
Yeah, it was, we all knew that if anything happened to either animal, it would probably be the end of that particular project, because with social media, you don't get away with things today. But you can't replace him with a little parrot that's a hand-operated thing for the other shots type thing. So he was, I thought he was just great. It was funny when he looks at you, like this woman. That's a great picture you have there up in the left there. That's from a commercial that's coming up. And this woman, I don't think realized that he liked her hair. And I don't think they knew it was a real bird, but I don't think they realized that you don't want to turn your head fast or something by him or whatever. But fortunately, Rocky was a total pro. He reacted and did all the things he was supposed to do.
Yeah. And this is one of the scenes from the commercial that's coming up in October, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
That's right. That's the party scene.
Yeah. Rocky had such an interest in this girl, and she kept talking to him between takes. I just thought this was really interesting that the makeup artist was jumping in to touch up her lipstick, and Rocky is so enthralled with her. I can't tell you how enriching this was for Rocky.
Well,
it was interesting that he definitely had, out of all the people that were there, his favorites. You could see he was like Jimmy D. He loved Jimmy D. Remember? When we wanted him to just kind of chill or whatever, or to react, we just send Jimmy D. He wasn't on camera, but he was like within Rocky's eyesight. And it was like that makeup artist. He just picked out the people he loved, which is so typical with birds, you know?
Yeah.
And it was funny. Jimmy ended up being in the shot with the bird in that wide shot because of the fact that
there he is.
He's sitting right up there near you. Were you in there, Laura?
No, and I didn't need to be.
Okay. Yeah, because Jimmy was sitting to the right at the corner there, 2 feet away from Rocky. And I think Rocky felt good that, someone he knew or liked was there. There's the back of Jimmy's head. It's a little bit bald.
Yeah, so Jimmy
I love that one.
Yeah.
Jimmy ended up having, you guys originally said that I might have to be in the commercial and in the wedding scene and sit close to Rocky.
Yeah.
When we first brought Rocky on set with the green screen in the basement of the party scene, that's when I was like, oh, wow, Rocky has a major attraction to Jimmy D. And then for the wedding shoot, Jimmy ended up having to be in the front seat. That's him sitting right in front of Rocky. Yeah. So Rocky would continue to jump and bounce and sing. And what he was actually doing was courting Jimmy D.
Yeah. Okay. I'll tell him that. There's a flood warning. Let me turn that off. We've been having a lot of rains here in Pittsburgh, and I guess Columbus has too. But
Toledo has too.
But anyway, that's a government thing on your iPhone. So
okay. So whenever, even when we shot, I don't know when the scene's coming out for the living room.
Is that the carpet?
Yes.
That's with the little girl and the little boy runs in.
Yep, that was kind of the exact recreation of the original, minus the bird, minus Rocky. I think that's playing. I'll have to check our media schedule, but I believe that's playing in a few locations. One of which may be St. Louis. I don't know if you have any followers in St. Louis, but they may have seen it there. Because Stanley Steemer is a franchise, we have national buys which cover everybody, but then on a franchise level, people buy their own schedule. So I'm not privy to what everybody does. So of all the spots that we've done, I'm sure somewhere in the country they've run, with the exception of the party scene.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember, and this was the last one you guys shot, the living room scene.
Yeah.
This was the last day of shooting for Rocky.
Yep.
This was his last day on set. And I remember isn't that Jimmy D up there in the right?
Yep.
Right of Rocky?
Yep.
I remember we had to call him back in for that scene to get Rocky jumping up and down and screaming.
And also it was hard. These spots, they seem simple and fun when you watch them, but like that particular spot there, is that your bird pretending he's the phone?
No, that's her. She just answered though. She was like, "Hello." It's kind of subtle, but she mimics everything.
But anyway, like that simple spot is shot twice. Once with the bird, once without the bird, once with the dog, without the dog. And the actors have to pretend that they're reacting to a dog that isn't there, as does Rocky. And of course, we always did cutaway close-ups of Rocky. And then we shot, Jim, 5-10 minutes of Rocky. To try to just get that perfect head turn, or that, he goes crazy sometimes when he's really excited. And so we shot those scenes separately and then put them in. But it was a fun time. It it's funny how sometimes on TV the simplest thing is actually more complicated than you think it is. Like when,
Oh yeah.
yeah, like a good example is that simple spot on the air with the Rocky scooting on the tile. That
Oh, you mean Toby scooting on the tile?
He's shooting on a tile while Rocky's watching.
Mhm.
You know, that is two separate shots put together. The everything below the table was shot separately as Toby goes through the scene, and then the scene up on the top. Sure enough, Rocky was able to react to that girl, which was great, and react as if he was looking at where Toby was, which was, you know, that's a pretty sophisticated bit of acting for Rocky to do, because he did look up like he was reacting to something, and there was nothing there other than maybe it was you alongside of the camera. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I was over to I was over to the right.
Yep.
Okay.
In front of that window, and I was over in front of that window going, "Jump up and down, show me your wings. Hi, Rocky."
And it was funny. It's good you have that picture on there right now, because when we planned that shot out, it would only be natural that there would be the normal table chairs around a kitchen island, like if the family eats there. And so Jim had picked out these particular chairs, and we thought, oh, that's perfect. And believe it or not, Rocky can actually just perch himself on that chair. Well, Rocky didn't like that chair too much and proceeded to rip the chair apart. And literally, what would you think, Jim? In 10 minutes, there was nothing left, or less than that. There was nothing left of the entire rung of that chair, and it was literally just destroyed. So in the final ad, we had to have his perch that he was used to stuck up there, and he really doesn't seem too weird, but I mean, most people wouldn't have a perch that low next to a table, but it worked out fine because it looks like he's on a chair instead of a thing. But
Yeah, that chair now resides in furniture heaven.
yeah. And now, is it that they're used to a certain perch and then they don't like something different? Is that what it is?
Not necessarily. I mean, my animals here are all used to change and looking for instruction or looking for advice, guidance, whatever. So I knew it wasn't going to be a problem, whatever stand or perch, whatever he was on. I know Rocky. And when I walked on set for this one, I remember coming down and you guys, I saw the chair sitting there and I was like, where's the perch? And you guys or somebody was saying, well, we'd like to have Rocky on the back of the chair. I was like, that chair is not going to make it very long.
I remember that.
He has access to that tabletop. And is this commercial out? Commercial is out, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. So doesn't it start off with her on the phone?
Yep.
This was the cool thing is just working with you guys through this, because if I were to take my phone and give it to Rocky, he's going to attack it. He's going to eat it. And so when I came on set and saw her going like this right next to Rocky, I was like, oh. Well, I just saw her phone. Well, he's not going to attack it, but he likes to go after them.
Sure.
He likes to go after computers. So I'm looking at this scene going, oh, well, this is going to take some work. How are we going to figure this out? But yeah, Glenn, it wasn't that he didn't like the chair. It's that I knew he wants to be near people, and that chair gave him easy access to that tabletop. And he was just going to run across the table.
Hmm.
So
yeah, he did a great job there, because if you watch the scene, that's a live action shot of the girl and him together. That isn't a split screen. The split screen is the dog below.
Yeah.
And his reactions to her and back and forth to what's going on, it literally looks like it literally looks like some kind of Hollywood training of it, but he's actually reacting to what she's saying. And then when she looks forward to see the dog below, the front of the thing, he actually appears to look up too, like he's want to see what's going on there too. So it worked out perfectly.
Yeah, he definitely reacts to what people do. I know this one isn't out yet, is it, Jim?
It may be. Again, this one was the hardwood. So it may be out. Again, it just from a corporate standpoint, we're not running it yet, but some of the franchises maybe, but you can talk about it. I think they're all up on our website, on the Vimeo and YouTube pages, I think.
Yeah. I think they can watch, on Vimeo or on our site or Stanley Steamers. I think all the ads are there. See, I mean, it's not like they're top secret.
Not anymore. No, we just wanted to kind of, excuse me, keep a lid on it until they did start to air, which was this spring. So now I think they're pretty much all out there.
Okay. Yeah. Kelly just said, this is out.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting a lot of people commenting saying they've seen these commercials. Like usually if not every morning, every other morning, I'm getting an email from somebody saying, hey, I saw what they're calling Rocky's commercial.
It's kind of taken over. That's funny.
It's funny. It also, I think people love to see a dog and a bird reacting to each other and sort of having semi-human traits. But,
they do.
And that's it's a popular theme. And matter of fact, there's Rocky in that picture there. Jim set that up so that we would have on top of the fireplace a family portrait of the Scoofy family.
And it was really
the bird and the dog were not there together.
Yep. It was really interesting for me to see behind the scenes and watch how all of this flowed. And I have to give a shout out to you, Glenn. I mean, this was my first time on set, but that whole the shooting of all 4 of those commercials was just a well-performed orchestra. It flowed beautifully.
Well, the hard part is that you have to, in my position, budgets are tight today, and they're realistic with Stanley Steemer, but they're very tight, and you better know what you're doing. And so we block the entire day out into 15-minute increments, and sometimes they're 30 minutes, but typically they're 15. So you know that when you finish shooting something, and Tracy's always in my ear going, Glenn, you're 5 minutes over on this, 5 minutes over. How long are you going to do it? So I hear that all the time. But you have like 10 minutes to move to another location, and we've already pre-lit that. And so, I mean, everything is like, if you don't do that, you're going to be there an extra day, or you're going to be into overtime at a level that you don't realize what it costs with that many crew people and all. So,
yeah.
But I'll tell you one thing, the real trick that a lot of people, that Glenn's not telling you about, I think he's being modest, is I'm in his other ear saying, shoot it again, shoot it again. Now I want to see it this way. Now I want to see it. Oh, I have a great idea. Try this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The
How long have the 2 of you been working together?
Oh my gosh. Since 95?
In 1995. Jim used to be the senior art director at a major New York agency and we worked with him on AutoZone and on everything.
Giant Eagle.
Yeah, Giant Eagle supermarkets, the Hunter
Brothers,
Hunter Douglas, Windows.
Yeah.
And so we've known each other for a long while. And anyway, just people that you like. And Jim is one of these unusual people that cares about the project selling something or doing something. We work with a lot of people that want some crazy thing, but don't particularly care if it does any good for the client that's paying the bill. And but Jim has a great mix of a creative thing, but something that people will remember and something that'll do good for whoever is paying for it.
Well, and for this, I mean, because we went back so far and we go back so far, I knew that Glenn and Jimmy D, his business partner, who's the executive producer on this, I knew they would pay attention to the details because we've done so many shoots together. It's such a well-oiled machine at this point that because we were introducing a dog, we were introducing a bird, and we had such a tight budget and such a tight timeline. A lot of this happened during the Christmas break. Glenn and I worked, I think, every day except for Christmas, trying to put this whole thing together. So by the time you and Rocky and Manny and everybody got there, they knew exactly what to do. Everybody was safe. The crew knew exactly what to do. So it worked out really, really well.
And every shot, other than the last day of the shoot when you weren't there or Rocky was there, was the Stanley Steemer technicians actually cleaning the same rugs in the same rooms and stuff. But and then the hardwood floor as well as the tile floor. But prior to that, every one of the shots were done with 2 cameras at the same time, because you never know what, like with Manny or with Rocky, like what happens if they decide after 2 or 3 takes they've had enough of this, or something. You better have enough footage that you could put that ad together. And so, like whenever Rocky was on set, one camera was shooting sort of a close-up of him, and the other one was shooting the basic scene that's going to be in the ad. So just in case there was a chance we got a good cutaway of him or something at that time. So it's we did quite a bit of planning, and quite a bit of it was related to the fact that there was animals and not just people. With people, you could tell them, all right, go take a break for 10 minutes, go away in the other room while we're moving something. The animals, you better know what you're doing, and you better have it efficiently going from A to B.
Oh, yeah. And to get everything, you want to get just today, when you're shooting with video, a lot of people may not realize it's all video, which is great. Before, it used to be film, which you paid. I don't remember. I'm not a producer. I just spend the money. But we used to just like roll through film. It was very expensive. But then there's a lot of processes to get that film into video and then back. So we could literally sit there and just kind of watch for that perfect reaction, which could be, 48 frames, if you will, of Rocky reacting, because we know we can use 46 of those frames. There's what, Glenn, in a second, 24 frames?
Yeah, it's 24 frames is when you're shooting it. And we had, back in the days of movie film, and Jim and I previously did everything on movie film up until, I think, 2008 or something is when things sort of started. The digital revolution's been happening for a good almost 10 years now. But prior to that, everything was movie film, and everything was 35 millimeter. And when you're shooting that, that's running through the film at 24 frames a second, which is, you'd run through a 400-foot load of movie film in 3 minutes. And
it's expensive.
Really expensive. It wouldn't be unusual. On this job we just shot, if that had been 35 millimeter movie film, there would have been $20,000 extra for just the film processing, transfer. So
I remember when I was in film school, that was back in the early 90s. We were just starting to work with video, but as a film student, I had to buy all my own film. And I just remember that it's expensive for me as a film student.
Oh, yeah. And that was probably 16 millimeter.
Yeah.
35 is a lot more. And then when we, I remember to show you how far film is no longer used. Okay. In our refrigerator, when we closed one of our offices, we had brand new Eastman color. We had 6 1,000-foot rolls of Eastman color in the freezer, so that's where you keep film so it doesn't deteriorate. And we offered it to any film student who wanted it for free. Okay. All they had to do was tell us that they were going to use it and not try to resell it on eBay. Okay. And we didn't have anyone interested in it. They didn't even want it for free.
Wow.
So that shows you how far film has gone down.
Sign of the times.
Usability. And almost all the film labs today are either closed. Like, remember, we used to go to Producers Color in Detroit. That's closed. We used to go to in Atlanta, that transfer places. Jimmy and I went down there numerous times with the film to tape transfers. Those places are out of business. I mean, everything has changed over the last 15 years, 10 years. So it's a different business today. So.
Do you find it easier not using film?
Well, film was a good, from a business standpoint, we were the largest consumer of 35 millimeter movie film in the whole state of Pennsylvania as far as commercial production. Not movies coming into town, but companies that were based in Pennsylvania. We had gotten that award several times. And back in those days with Eastman Kodak Company, they're in Rochester, New York, you could never be behind more than, in other words, you had to pay, if you were 31 days past due on film, they wouldn't sell it to you. They had such a monopoly on the business, and they used to joke that you're paying the same price for that film as George Lucas is paying. And it's true. They never discounted film to anybody. Now, other film manufacturers like Fuji did. And so that, anyway, but the final blow to the film industry was when all the theaters in the country, and I know you have some people overseas too, but when they all started digital projection and converted, okay, that was almost the end of film, because when that happened, none of these companies could sell print stock. And remember, when you print a movie like, any popular movie, there's millions of feet of film that are used for all the theater prints, for all, a typical movie has I would say a typical movie might have 10,000 feet. Remember, it's 90 feet a minute it's running through. And a typical movie would have that many feet. Well, imagine that many feet times every theater that was playing in that weekend. And that situation didn't exist anymore. And that's why Fuji came out with a white paper and said, we are no longer manufacturing film effective. And they really detailed, the loss of, it wasn't practical to make film. Kodak still is in business as another company now, but they still use the Kodak name, and you can order custom still film stocks. And if you're Steven Spielberg or somebody like that, you can film on whatever you want. The money is not an option, but 90% of what you're seeing today has nothing to do with film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it. I wanted to put up a couple of different shots here. We're coming up on the hour. I don't want to keep you guys. But there was a lot that went into these commercials that I thought was really fun and interesting to see behind the scenes. So this is the dinner party shot, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's my assistant director, Steve. He's there moving his hands around, and hopefully Rockies will look and react to him because he is moving his hands in a crazy sort of way. And this other camera there is shooting a close-up of Rocky's face while he's doing it.
It was funny to see everybody, because Rocky is very attracted to men. It was funny to see behind the scenes what the guys were doing to try to get Rocky to react. And
yeah.
So here, what's his name again? I'm sorry.
That was Steve.
Steve.
Yeah.
And Steve was just really cautious and accommodating.
Harris is his last name. He's an excellent guy. He works on a lot of movie films, and he's out of Pittsburgh, and I've known him for years.
Okay.
But he has very good organizational skills with the rest of the crew there, as far as making sure everybody moves at a certain speed without hurting their feelings, so to speak. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And he's very, very good at that. And he and I have worked together on quite a few jobs. But,
so here he was. I mean, this is one of only several shots. I decided to leave the other shots out, but here he's trying to be very animated and get Rocky to bounce up and down.
Yeah.
And then
and he did too. Rocky did do exactly what he's trying to get him to do. And that was great. I thought something that might be of interest to people that are in your group watching is if they wanted to try to make any money off of a pet that they have around the country. And like, for example, people frequently have a dog that's just a friendly, nice dog. And, is there any market for that dog in still photos or whatever? And it's an interesting proposition. Now, you're a professional trainer, a professional person. But if you were to take and you try to sell, in essence, people using your dog, you better be set for insurance and a bunch of other things, because if that dog doesn't, accidentally bite somebody or something, the average homeowner policy isn't going to cover it if you're commercially using that dog, or that would be probably the most common thing. If you had a bird could probably, yours are perfectly trained, but I mean,
well, not really, but
I guess if it were in a cage, it would be kind of harmless as long as nobody did something to it that could hurt the bird. But I know a lot of people ask me, because they ask me about their kids. They'll say, "Oh, I'd love to get little Jimmy into things. Can he be an actor or whatever? That kind of stuff." And it's a weird thing. You have to spend a lot of time on it, and you have to get sort of serious about it. And
it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. And if a person, I know that still photographers that I know in Pittsburgh, and there's always, every city, whoever your people are all around the country and the world, but in every city, there's 2 or 3 still photographers that are the big boys that do the advertising and do the commercial work. There's a ton of them that do weddings and things, but and it's not unusual for a bank to want a cool shot of 2 little kids together and maybe their dogs there with them. And it talks about student loans, getting money saved for your kids to go to college. Well, people would say, well, couldn't that be my dog there? And people do, that, but just be careful on insurance and realize that you can't like not show up that day with the dog because the dog didn't feel good. There's things that people don't really think about, but
that you need to take into consideration. I was there for 3 days.
Yeah, I
was thoroughly exhausted when I got home.
It is exhausting work.
It's a lot of work. Like, here's a photo I wanted to show. The first couple times Rocky was on set and he heard, this is what we talk about in science of behavior. This is a conditioned reinforcer, a cue. When he heard the word rolling, because Steve would say that in a certain tone of voice, he was very consistent with how he would say it. Rocky, the first couple times Rocky heard it, he was the one on set, and he paired that excitement and everything was about Rocky with that word rolling. Here we are up in our room. It was a lot of work for me to try to keep Rocky quiet while the rest of the commercials. Every time he heard the word rolling, he'd climb down off his cage, and there he is headed on set.
he's going to be a little star now.
Yeah. Well, it was such enrichment for him that when we got back here to the center, I actually looked up for an agent for it, but I was doing, I tried submitting him to an agent to do this for him once in a while because it was such a great experience.
Mm-hmm. That's great. There's people that are, that are good at doing things, and there's other people that think of it as an anime, just a bird. Who cares about this? To be in the shot. So you got to make sure that you to do your due diligence if you own an animal, to make sure that there's no chance something bad could happen with the animal. And there are people that they're told, you got 1 hour to do this, whatever, and they won't particularly respect that the animal, it's not a human and can't be told exactly what to do. Like, why are you doing that? Well, it's because he's an animal.
Right. You guys were my only time working with an animal on set. And maybe you've spoiled me thinking this is how respectful all sets are.
Well, that was a pretty big production. Now, the typical, if you're in a city like Indianapolis and there's just a local video made, there may only be what, Jim, 2 or 3 people on the crew.
Yeah.
And so suddenly that puts you more into, you're the protector total of the animal. And you got to be able to say to somebody, no, you're not going to do that with him. He is not going to sit on your head, or something. Because they come up with silly ideas and didn't do any thought on the process of what it involves.
Right. And I think what was interesting on this is so much thought went into it. me being a bird owner and just someone who loves birds and knows that they're quirky animals. They're not like a dog. They have such strong personalities. They're so intelligent. It's like having a child out there. So, and what was great was, you know, obviously Glenn and Jimmy are very, very respectful of all that. And so, Laura, you also set the tone by not being afraid to express, like, this is what I need, this is how I want it, this is how he'll react. So I think if anybody were ever thinking about doing this in the future, I think those are some really good cues. Make sure that you talk with the production company first, talk with the director, talk with the creative director, if it's, you know, depending on, you know, who the players are. And really, because we all had so many conversations on this before we even like forged a plan. So I think it's really important because a lot of people may not realize that you just don't show up with the bird or a dog or a cat or whatever it may be. There's so many specifics around it that speak your mind, like let them know. And really, if you don't feel comfortable, don't do it. Money's not worth it.
Yeah, that's a real good point. If you care about the animal, the money doesn't. You're going to have your animal injured for $250 or something for some still photographer to do something, and but we had a great experience with you, Laura. And
we did. It was great.
Thank you. I want to put up a couple of comments that people are saying. Stacy asked me, would I do it again with Rocky or any of the other resident animals here? I would say, Glenn, with your production company, yes, I would. Jim, if you ever asked me to do something again, yes, I would, because now I'm already familiar with how you work. I could see how, I mean, you guys were very respectful of the animals. So yes, if either of you asked me to do anything like this again, yes, I would.
Could he be trained to clean a floor with a Stanley Steemer machine?
I could probably train him to push it around. So two other people said something. Ray says she's down in Florida. Glenn and Jim need a Rocky mug.
Good idea.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe I sent a Rocky mug out to Jim, Glenn, and Jimmy D.
Okay, cool. I'll get it to Jimmy D. Just send it to me, and I see him every Wednesday if we're not doing something. Anyway, we have meetings.
Okay. And then, Jim, you might be interested in this one. Frank Cars, trying to remember where Frank lives, but he says, we use Stanley Steemer after the commercial. Great work. Thanks to Rocky.
Oh, good. Good to hear. Glad to hear it.
So I want to thank you both for coming on today. This is just a shot of I took of Rocky at night. The enrichment, the attention, the interaction was so enriching for him that he slept very well in the evening.
That's good.
Good.
Yep. So when we returned back to the Animal Behavior Center, this is his enclosure, the food dish of his enclosure. Our manager, Karen Pratt, made him a movie star picture for his food dish.
Well, he was a star.
Yeah. So since then, 13 ABC has been out here and they caught wind of this. And that was due to the press release that Karen Pratt sent out. And they came out and did like a couple minute spot just on Rocky's story. Stanley Steemer. I had the news get in touch with you, Jim. Mm-hmm. And then I think yesterday or 2 days ago, here's this from 13 ABC. 2 days ago, an article was written on Rocky's story from a really well-known company within the bird community. So
that's great.
Yeah. So, well, I don't want to keep you guys. Oh, before we end, I wanted to show if anybody wants to see the commercials. Here's Stanley Steemer's website. I don't know if they're on there. Are they, Jim? But I
don't believe so. No, they'd be on our YouTube or Vimeo page.
Okay. So, all right. So your Vimeo page, here's your YouTube page. And I think the Rocky's commercial is the one, it's in the second row. Rocky's commercial.
That's fine. It is.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have had it without him.
Yeah. And then Glenn,
Yeah, if they go to our page, it literally links to Vimeo, and I have all the ads in sequence there, so they could watch every one of Rocky's ads back to back as one pass. So they're welcome to do that. So
yep. And there's your Vimeo page, correct?
Yeah, and on Vimeo, yeah, it's just what is it on Vimeo? I have the number of it, but it's too complicated unless if you know.
Well, you know what? Once this live stream's over, I can go in and post the links of. Oh,
okay, good.
I can post those links for you, and then I guess with that being said, I want to thank you both for coming on here live. Darn it, with me today. I appreciate this, and this meant a lot.
This was great.
Yeah, it was fun, and it's great that people. You know, I love that people love animals and love birds and love dogs and things like that, and you know, and it gives a little credit to you and to other people that have worked so hard with these animals. So we just got to film them and all. You got to train him and do everything else with him.
Well, if you guys ever need another bird or a pig or
okay,
or a dog, let us know. We have of animals.
Hopefully we'll expand this and maybe even get Rocky at another set. You know, we'll campaign it out perhaps. We'll see.
Yeah.
He could say, I got rid of that dog and now it's just me.
Well, thank you so much. It was a great experience all around. It really was.
Thank you both. Enjoy the rest of your holiday weekend, and thank you everybody for attending another episode of Coffee with the Critters.
All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.